have access to that they're not getting access to right now. For example, when you walk into a grocery store, I'm of the belief that you should know and be notified at your store of current outbreaks. If there's an outbreak about romaine lettuce, then I think it's the obligation of the grocery stores where people are shopping to let you know.
Right. The technology exists, and, Frank Yanis from the FDA, formerly to Walmart, is a big proponent of blockchain. And, the technology exists that, you can fairly quickly, let consumers know and let the chain of distribution know if there's a problem. Most big stores that are to the point where if you scanned something in that has actually been recalled, it'll stop your ability to scan it and won't let you buy it. So there are things that happen. Most grocery stores, at least on their websites, do put up information about recalled products pretty quickly. But
it's on their website. I mean, when you're shopping, you know what I mean? You're in there.
Right. But big stores, whether it's a Walmart, Kroger, Aldi's, et cetera, as soon as they know they have a problem, they lock stuff down. It's pretty unusual nowadays. It happens. It does happen. It's pretty unusual, though, for the industry not to be on top of things that are actually being recalled. It's a lot of work, but the systems exist where they can actually do that pretty quickly. There's always, there can always be improvement. Even an entity like an Amazon was selling the soy nut butter that had been recalled, had been selling it through a third party people, were selling it 6 months after the recall had happened.
Wow.
Anyway, so, those things do happen. The system doesn't operate perfectly. More importantly, I think retailers, especially the big ones, the Walmarts, the Costco's, Kroger's, they're the ones that really should be putting the pressure on the industry and government to protect their customers, their purchasers of these products. To me, that's where the big failing is the guys and gals that are making the buck off these big retail sales. They're the ones that should be putting the pressure on the industry and government to fix this problem.
Yeah. Well, and here's my thought too, is once you get to the point of an outbreak, it means enough people have gotten sick that it's on the radar of the FDA and the CDC. Correct. So what do we do? What can a consumer do to protect themselves? Because I feel like once the outbreak happens, it's too late. What do you do every day? What would you say the top 3 things as a consumer, what can we do to prevent getting sick, to mitigate risk for ourselves and our family in the first place?
Well, there are certain things that, that I avoid. There's certain things that, I think people who...
what are the things you won't eat? What won't Bill eat?
I'll circle back to that. I have a funny story about that. But, you have to think about it this way too, is that there are a large chunk of our population are immune compromised. They either are elderly, have undergone, some kind of therapy for cancers, they're children, they're pregnant women.
My dad's one of them.
Yeah.
Cancer survivor, doesn't have a bladder.
Yep. So, you have these vulnerable populations, and I think that's sort of a separate category of people that, really have to pay attention to not eating rare, meats, not eating, raw shellfish, not eating sprouts, not eating unpasteurized juices or milks, paying attention to, especially women, pregnant women, cheeses and deli meats that might be in the refrigerator for a little longer than you expect because of listeria growth. I mean, there are things that you can do to protect yourself. I mean, keeping hot things hot and cold things cold, and, cleaning, your fruits and vegetables well, just, and then, there's this great thing called cooking. And, to answer your question about what I avoid, I travel all over the world. Knock on wood, I have never had a foodborne illness. And I've gone to lots of different places. But I'm very lucky. But I'm very careful. Yeah. Very careful. I will not eat a salad out at a restaurant. I'll order
at all, like no restaurants.
I'll order cooked vegetables. I'll get my salad at home where I can control my own environment. Mm-hmm. I don't buy processed leafy greens. I'll buy a head of romaine lettuce and wash it myself. Doesn't mean that it can't be contaminated, but to give you an example, in the case of the Will Daniels case where he was involved, the Earthbound Farm, we actually were able to figure out that there was about a 20-acre baby spinach plot that was likely the place where that was contaminated. And it was likely contaminated by wild pigs breaking down a fence and doing their business in certain portions of this field. Not all of the spinach was contaminated. There's small portions of it. But when you harvested it all at the same time, it all went to the processing facility, and it overwhelmed the chlorine and the cold water wash. So all of this, more of this got contaminated. That's why you had a big outbreak. Had that spinach grown and you put it in bunches, would there have been some people sick? Maybe. But if you were buying it in bunches, some will be contaminated, but not all of it. So if you have an outbreak, you might have one person, two people, or none. And so part of the problem, in my view, is that it's great convenience and the ability to, eat these things, quickly and make it easy for you is great, but it doesn't come without, the problems. Cut fruits and vegetables. I know that that's really very convenient because I have a deli in the building that I own. That it's great, and they have fresh fruits and vegetables that they cut up, and I go and get an apple and wash it myself.
Yeah,
it's just I know too much.
And so, and this is, a big reason why we created our products was so that it would give people an opportunity to clean their produce in a way that's over 99.9% more effective than water alone, because we don't clean anything with water alone and call it clean. Do you think there's a reason why we're not being advised to clean produce in a way that's different other than just water alone? Because even when you buy processed produce that's been, cut and bagged, they're using a certain amount of chlorine that's legal, although that's not a kill step really. Or they're using peroxyacetic acid, which again is not that effective. But, when you're at home and you buy a whole head of lettuce, yes, it's important to wash, but is water really doing the job?
Right. No, I think there are, I don't have a good explanation of why, other than the fact that the government doesn't necessarily go out of its way to put their finger on the scale for one person or another, or one product or another. But, I think that, your product, other similar kinds of products that do that kind of thing, it's just smart for consumers. Put it this way, buying a head of romaine and washing it with, running water is better than not washing it at all.
Yes.
Certainly using a product that, will get rid of 99.9% of of potential pathogens is even better. The idea here is to knock, our human bodies can fight these bugs if the infectious dose is low enough. But you got to understand that 50 bacterium of E. coli is enough to make you sick, and 100,000 of them could fit on the head of a pin.
Wow.
This is not, you need to try to do the best you can to avoid it, at the farm level, but that's not going to be perfect. I think that, in my view, convenience isn't worth the risk. And if you can control your own environment in your home and, wash it using, whatever means you feel comfortable using, I think that's the way it has to be done.
That's a better option. So how do you feel about, will you eat sushi or raw, oysters and things like that?
Well, as a guy from the Pacific Northwest, I grew up on raw oysters. That's probably not something that's on my to-do list when I go out. And it's primarily, again, because things are different today than when I was a 20-something-year-old. The waters are warmer. Norovirus is more prevalent. The population has grown. Areas that used to be completely always pathogen free, you're seeing them happening more and more. So, I know foodies love raw oysters. My wife will eat raw oysters, but I'll just sort of do you
ever just go, no, honey, don't do it?
You can only do so much. So, and after 31 years of marriage, almost 32, I sort of know when to pick my battles. Sushi, you're less, it's not impossible, but, it is a product that is less likely to be contaminated with bacteria if you're, buying fresh sushi, fresh out of the water. I mean, absolutely. But, I've certainly had salmonella outbreaks linked to, quote unquote sushi that you buy in grocery stores, sushi rolls kind of thing, or at 7-Elevens kind of thing. And
that's probably not the place you want to buy sushi.
Right,
I think word of caution for everybody here listening, if you're going to have something that is raw, the higher the risk, the more important it is that the place you're eating at is credible. Do your homework. I always say if you can't see sushi being made in front of you, you probably don't want to order it.
I would
because there's also the risk of it being cross-contaminated with a raw protein that can, or, even raw produce that can make you sick too. So, and if it's warm, don't touch it.
Exactly.
So, Bill, where can people find out more about you?
I'm not that hard to find on the internet nowadays. I
love your tweets, by the way. I'm always checking out what you're doing on Twitter.
I've lost many of followers lately on some of my political tweets. I should probably shut up on that, but I can't help it. I have a blog, marlerblog.com, where I pontificate about things. I just actually did a post regarding some updated numbers on the romaine lettuce outbreak from 2018. The CDC had said there were only 210 people sick, which is a lot, but the actual numbers is 240. And they also put an interesting statistic in there that for every one person counted, they estimate that 26 others were sickened. So do the math, 240.
So it's like double the number, basically.
Well, no, like 26 times the number.
Oh, 26 times more.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. So the, and that runs the gamut between, mostly people who were not that sick or not sick enough to see the doctor, but it's still, those numbers are staggering.
Is there, for people who have gone through foodborne illness or have a